Welcome everyone to season 4, episode 124 of the Premier Pod. I'm your host, Yash, joined by my co-host, Tyler Chan. And if you could tell from last week's episode, I sound a lot better. I've definitely healed from my common cold. Last week was a little bit of a struggle getting through it with the sore throat, but give your body a couple days rest. You're feeling completely brand new. So that's how I'm feeling. I feel energized and feel ready to go again. But it's a pretty exciting episode because the top 22 players for FIFA, the FIFA ratings have been revealed. But we also got this past weekend some exciting stuff that happened between some of the top teams. Ronaldo making his second debut at Manchester United, Liverpool handling stuff at Leeds, some other notable players making some big moves in the Premier League. But to get things started, we had the Manchester United Newcastle game where United beat Newcastle United 4-1 at home. And what was the bigger storyline of the Premier League, I would say, was Cristiano Ronaldo making his second debut back at Old Trafford, back at Manchester United. He scored a brace. I mean, it just kind of had written in the stars almost, where you just expected him to score. Jesse Lingard got on the scoring. Bruno Fernandes scored a screamer. So all in all, it was a really good day for Manchester United. But one thing that I wanted to point out is just it felt box office again. Like legitimately, Manchester United felt they lived up to the name Theater of Dreams for so long since Sir Alex has retired. That's been the biggest crux, is that they have looked so off when at home, but now it seems like they're finally back in terms of the Theater of Dreams. So that was my biggest takeaway, was obviously Ronaldo, but the vibe and the kind of the atmosphere around Old Trafford, it was back, like they were back on top again.
It really felt like one of those superstar teams that had no compromise either. It was like, oh, all right, we have, Fred in. Like, eventually we'll get someone else. It's like, no, like this starting 11 for this time. Although Matic, it was,
Yeah,
it was old Matic, but at least it was like a CDM that was, had the resume that's shown that he's won on old teams, with Chelsea, with Mourinho and
hmm
things like that. But this team was stacked. They had basically their new players they got from that summer transfer window of Varane, Sancho, and Ronaldo all
yeah,
starting. And I feel like the biggest talking point that kind of came up throughout this game in particular was what happens to Bruno Fernandes? Because like he was the star of the show. That he
yeah.
was the reason why
He's
people brought the
orchestrator.
Portuguese flag to the game. And then now all of a sudden they're like, well, this flag's for Ronaldo now, and you, of course, but you know, Ronaldo mostly. But it also showed this game Bruno Fernandes also getting a goal. He's like, I'm not out. I'm
He
still gonna
scored a
be.
screamer
Yeah, he scored
too.
a screamer. So I think now it just kind of goes to show that y'all have two superstar Portuguese players, and it's
uh,
going to be a
n-
wild
and
season in terms of goal
and
scoring
not
up there.
not to mention Paul Pogba getting another assist in this game is
His
crazy. This guy's like,
passing
it's
is
been
crazy.
incredible. It's just he's just that argument we brought up. I think it was maybe a couple months back, but we mentioned that Paul Pogba, when he's in everyone talks about France Paul Pogba versus Manchester United Paul Pogba. The argument we always made was Paul Pogba is the guy, when your team is already good, you place him in that team and they make that team 10 times better. He's not a guy that you put in when the team is struggling to kind of spark some life, like a Bruno Fernandes type player. But we're seeing that now that Manchester United have a more probably the most complete team they've had since Paul Pogba has been a Manchester United player. He's thriving and he is shining, and you could see it through the assists, the passes, the way he's been playing with a lot more confidence. Everyone, I feel like, has kind of gotten that mega boost from Ronaldo joining, but also the big summer signings. But one thing I noticed that I hope that unfortunately will be the byproduct of Ronaldo signing with Manchester United is a trying to force feed him the ball a little bit too much. I felt at times, a lot of times during this Newcastle game, I felt it was a little bit boring, in a sense that it was kind of a lot of passing sideways. And, we kind of got them, once we got them on the break, we kind of took advantage and such. But one thing that I did notice, that sometimes we were trying to cross too many balls in, or, try to force feed Ronaldo a little bit too much. And obviously, when you have a player of that caliber, whether it be Messi or Ronaldo, you're going to obviously try to get them the ball as much as possible, because why not? But I wouldn't want to see the team get too comfortable where they're just, when all of a sudden all they do is their first option is pass it to Ronaldo, pass it to Ronaldo, pass it to Ronaldo. And I think with the players such as Bruno Fernandes, Paul Pogba, big personalities. And obviously, when Marcus Rashford comes back, when Jaden Sancho kind of gets his feet settled in a lot more, those are the type of players that can maybe handle, taking care of the load for, for Ronaldo, or they can handle handling the ball themselves. They don't have to force feed it. But I kind of look out for players like Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Luke Shaw, Harry Maguire, whoever plays that holding midfielder position. Do they have enough confidence in themselves to, play the right pass instead of trying to force feed the ball into Ronaldo if he's demanding it all the time? So that's one thing I think will be something to look out for this season, because, if we are trying to force feed Ronaldo too much, I feel like that will break up kind of the fluidity of the team.
I mean, part of it also from, old Ronaldo is that he's kind of a ball hog. If you give him the ball, it's like, all right, go free. And then he just runs up the left wing and then just tries to juke out 5 people and then take a shot. Whereas, over the years, he's gotten a little better. But I kind of
Mhm.
saw a little glimpse of that in this past game against Newcastle. And it might be just because also it's his second debut for Manchester United, the return. So
He was
he
doing
definitely
step
wanted,
overs again, like he was 20 years
yeah.
old.
I was like, holy cow. And then he would just take shots from like crazy angles. I'm like, all right. And then I don't even know if you remember, like one of his first shots he did was like a 360.
Yeah,
Like he
yeah.
just
It
did
was
like
a
a
failed
twirl. I'm like,
360. Yeah.
I don't know why he did that, but I'm like, all right. He's like a tornado kick. And he completely shanked it. I was like, man, okay. I don't know what kind of Ronaldo we're gonna get, but I mean, ultimately he got the 2 goals, and like his second goal was just very much like, all right, I'm not here to mess around now. I'm gonna be clinical. So that's something that's just so reassuring for Manchester United is like they got a legit goal scorer, and when you do need the goal, Ronaldo's not gonna be like the old Ronaldo trying to like juke out players. He's just gonna just rip it, and he's more reliable now, if anything. But I did also see a little bit of, as you said, a lot of funneling into Ronaldo. Because I mean, like, it is Ronaldo. Like, if you don't give
Yeah.
him the ball,
Like, what's the point?
yeah, exactly. It's like you
You got to
literally
find a
have
balance.
one of the best forwards of all time now. Granted, he's like 36, but I mean, he's still, because of
Yeah.
his Tom Brady effect of just being super in shape somehow, some way with his practice and his diet and everything. He's still
Hmm.
basically almost in his prime, like maybe just a little
Yeah.
bit past it. But I still think he's still one of the best in the world. So, I mean, the other person you could feed it to, who was previously being fed, was Bruno Fernandes. But I mean, now you got
Hmm.
2 players to feed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why you got Sancho, man. He's the man who's trying to whip up as many chances as he can get.
It's been interesting because Sancho has started the past 2 games, but obviously or past 3 games, I think, or yeah, past 2 games, but he has still trying to get his feet underneath himself. Obviously, he was a start in the Bundesliga, but any player moving from another league to the Premier League, there is that type of, I guess, adjustment period that a lot of players go through. Obviously, not everyone. Some players just hit the ball running right away, but I'm sorry, Jaden Sancho has looked a little shaky at times. It looks like his confidence, I wouldn't say is shaken, but I definitely think it looks like he's second guessing himself and overthinking things a little bit too much rather than playing from just what he normally did at Dortmund. I feel like, maybe it's the crowd, maybe it's the pressure of, the big money move to Manchester United, but I definitely say give him some time. He'll definitely showcase like why he was worth so much money and why he's one of the more exciting, talented young prospects in this game. But it's going to take him a little bit of time because he's still very young, moving from uh, Dortmund to Manchester United. But obviously, Ronaldo, he's been there, done that. So that pressure, even though he's a little nervous, he is still able to perform. But um, I wanted to also bring up the Varane Maguire partnership. I know. I know Varane looked really, really good against Wolves, but again, he showed off his class again in this match against Newcastle. He's just, when you have like, it's kind of like that Van Dyke effect. When you have a really world class, top class center back who can kind of just command the back line, kind of usher people around, is very cool, calm, and collected when things are going a little bit crazy, doesn't panic on the ball, is never, kind of making rash decisions like we used to have with Marcus Rojo, Eric Bailly. We have with Varane someone that is very confident in what he can do, who knows what to do, and can confidently perform whatever he needs to get done because he has the quality. And it's kind of that reassurance in the back that Manchester United haven't had for a very, very long time, ever since the likes of Rio Ferdinand and Nemanja Vidic retired from the club. So it's nice to see that Varane and Maguire, especially Varane coming in, has kind of brought that little glue to the back line that they were kind of missing for this long of time.
And obviously, it won't be as good as Rio Ferdinand and
Yeah.
Vidic, obviously, because like that was like a legendary back pair. But I mean, this is pretty up there. It's not even
Hmm.
just slightly above average. It's near world class. It's pretty getting. I mean, we gotta get more time between the two to build some chemistry, and also to see how Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Luke Shaw do flanking them on the left and
Yeah.
right back positions. But I mean, as they build more throughout the season, they should theoretically get better and better. So
Hmm.
already, as of now, although they faced a Newcastle team that was Newcastle, it's just the adjective to describe them is just themselves. But I mean, they're not the best team. They're a team that probably will be facing and fighting relegation throughout the season. So we'll have to see how they do against kind of better opposition as they face them throughout the season. And
Hmm.
next week I believe to face West Ham, and that should be a pretty good test to see
Yeah. Where
how
they
they
at?
really are, because
Yeah.
Newcastle's not they can make anyone look good. So we'll see. But there is one
Yeah.
question that I kind of want to go back to in terms of the Bruno Fernandez and Ronaldo pairing. Whereas I kind of remember when Ronaldo was at Juventus, when he just joined the season before, Paulo Dybala, he kind of went
Yeah. It
off.
was
Like he was one
off.
of the top goal scorers, one of the
Him and
best players in the
Higuain
league,
were pretty
with
good.
Higuain as well. But when Ronaldo came, Dybala did get hit with some injuries here and there, but his goal totals dropped dramatically, and like his ability to make big impacts in the game also dropped, and even to the point where he's basically benched for other players to play instead, like Chiesa, Bernardeschi, and that might be part of the manager's decision too. Like I didn't really watch and follow Juve too closely, but I just kind of noticed just statistically, I was like, "What's happening? What's
Yeah.
happening to Dybala?" So I'm just kind of curious what your take and your prediction might be for Bruno Fernandes, because I think that'd be the equivalent for Dybala at Juve. It would be Bruno Fernandes at Man U. Do you think it would be maybe that kind of partnership that Dybala and Ronaldo had at Juve, or closer to maybe something that Kane and Son have at Tottenham, where maybe it might be more of a mutualistic relationship rather than one where it's like almost parasitic? Kind of busting out the scientific lingo, but
Yeah. There we
no,
go.
that's what I'm curious about.
That's tough. I think looking at this game, it's only a very small sample size, but I feel like it's a little bit different because I feel like even though Juventus, when they brought in Ronaldo, their main goal was to win the Champions League, and they kind of had a team that was ready to win now. I feel like this team, Manchester United team, is different because even though they have a lot of star power, and now it's almost like, yeah, we have to win now. If you really look at the squad, Ronaldo is the oldest player on the team. Everyone else is relatively young and kind of hitting their prime or literally at their prime right now. And when you go back to Juventus, you would have to say Ronaldo was one of 5 or 6 older players in the starting 11 for Juventus because they had a really old starting 11. So I feel like in a lot of ways, Ronaldo, I feel like the biggest person that he might take away some of production from is maybe the likes of Mason Greenwood. Um, I feel like Mason Greenwood for sure, I think probably will get hit the most because I feel like Bruno Fernandez works in a little bit of a different role than Paulo Dybala because even though Fernandez does play up top a lot, I still feel like he can still settle in the midfield. I feel like Dybala was more of a center forward striker ish role depending on the role he needed to play. But I feel like with the way Bruno Fernandez plays, he can feed the likes of Ronaldo those balls, and he can also score a lot on his own. So I don't feel like Bruno's production will go off that much, but also I don't see it working as closely as a Harry Kane or Hyun-Min Son because I feel like those two just worked so perfectly with each other that I don't think that's very likely. But I think maybe more of the likes of Mason Greenwood, maybe Marcus Rashford, Jaden Sancho, maybe those. I feel like the wingers might get affected a little bit more because last season it was definitely the wingers contributed a lot of goals for United, such as Marcus Rashford scoring 20 plus goals, Mason Greenwood chipping in a lot towards the end. I feel like those players might get impacted a lot more than maybe a Bruno Fernandes type for United.
We didn't even talk about Martial.
Yeah.
He's
Man, he's too
basically a
far.
goner.
He's too far. Jesse Lingard has now overtaken Anthony Martial
I
on
was gonna
the
say,
depth
I was like,
chart.
we saw Messi Lingard come in, score a
Yeah,
goal. His
score a great goal.
celebration, he
Yes,
came in.
sir. J League's back.
Lings is
Um,
back.
yeah, I mean, honestly, that's the state of Martial right now. The fact that Jesse Lingard has shown last season and in the summer that he's been really, really good, but man, Anthony Martial has just not looked very, very good. And in terms of people you would want to bring on, you would have to put Jesse Lingard above him, and you even saw Donny Van de Beek get a run in as well. So I don't know. I think Martial still could play a little bit, but definitely if you had to pick a person to come off the bench from him or Cavani, you'd definitely pick Cavani over Martial.
Hmm. That's crazy that you guys even have this level of depth too.
Yeah,
So,
free Cavani can come on. That's crazy. Cavani's like a class striker to come off the
mhm.
bench. He scored I think 15 goals, around 16 or 15 goals last season.
And
It's
he was a
crazy.
starter, and now he came on just for an extra year just to kind of keep it going, and then you got benched. Just like, all right, knows Ronaldo. I can't really complain. He can have my number too. Here
Yeah.
you go. Here's a 7.
So
But
again, I think the main point is that Manchester United kind of feel like box office again. So we'll see if they can keep it up because it's been exciting to see them come out, I guess, firing guns blazing in the start of the Premier League season. But now that they have Ronaldo, I'm going to be very interested to see how they get on in the bigger competitions, such as Champions League, a competition they've struggled mightily in since Sir Alex has retired, whether that's getting knocked out in the group stage or not really progressing past the round of 16. So I'm going to be interested to see how they perform in that competition and also how they can get consistently good in the Premier League. But moving on to Leeds United versus Liverpool. Liverpool basically destroyed Leeds 3-0, but there was a lot of storylines that happened in this game. Salah scored his 100th Premier League goal, which is a pretty big milestone because I think on the stats, I think he's one of, I think, the fourth fastest or the third fastest Premier League player to reach 100 goals in a number of appearances. But again, it was funny. A lot of people used to call him like the one season wonder. But I mean, the man has consistently, I guess, scored 20 plus goals almost every season since that first season. So kudos to him. 100 Premier League goals. That's a big milestone. But um, kind of the bad news that overtook the game was Harvey Elliott, Liverpool's young midfielder that has been kind of taking up the storm recently. The past, I think, 3 games he's started for Liverpool at 18 years old, starting in that center mid position, kind of Genie's replacement. Unfortunately, got a terrible injury where, um, I'm sure we all saw it, but it was a scary ankle injury where it almost literally looked like his ankle just dislocated. And as Klopp said in the post game interview, they literally had to pop it back in. It was a gruesome injury, and he went on Instagram and said that he's doing fine. And I think Liverpool put out a statement that he was discharged from the hospital the same day that it happened. So I guess now it's just on the road to recovery for him. But yeah, it was a terrible injury you don't want to see to any player. But it was kind of, he said it that it wasn't the player to blame, the Leeds player to blame. It was more of a freak accident that happens when you play a high intensity sport. So unfortunately, it's just one of those things that I remember when Luke Shaw, like that injury happened to Luke Shaw during 2015 season against PSV, and it was something that derailed his career for a little bit until now he's finally kicked on. Then, but hopefully for Elliot, he can make a comeback and make a quick one and not really get derailed too much from this injury.
yeah, if you didn't see this injury,
Yeah,
I
don't
would
look at it.
advise. I would not look it up. It was one of the most gruesome things I've ever seen live. It was, as Yash said, like his foot like dislocated entirely. Like it was just from his leg. It seemed like it just was like a different piece that was just like flopping around, and like immediately like the medical staff had to come onto the pitch. Like the ref didn't even blow the game to like pause or anything. Like they just rushed on because Salah saw it happen, and they just like rushed him on, and they literally had to take his foot and then put it back in place. I saw it all happen. I was like, oh, that was that was ugh. So hopefully, we're thinking of Harvey Elliott. Hopefully, the 18-year-old, his career doesn't get derailed entirely from this traumatic injury, and that he can hopefully recover by next season. Because like this,
Hmm.
I'm no doctor, but I would expect like at least this being a season-ending injury,
Yeah.
and like we've seen injuries in the past kind of derail careers and like maybe even take him for a turn. But Harvey Elliott, this is so early in his career.
Yeah.
It's going to be very interesting to see how it goes. Hopefully, he can kind of take this, make this like like a chip on his shoulder kind of thing. It's like, you know what, I can come back from this. I can. It's all good. Like he literally was breaking into the starting 11 of Liverpool consistently
Yeah.
for the beginning of the season, and now just bad timing and unfortunate accident from a Leeds defender. But
Yeah.
thinking about it now, I was like, oh, that was kind of rough. And I know, I think the face of Strauch, the Leeds defender that kind of committed the foul, like he got a straight red, but like the face that he made, it was just so sad. It's just like he felt so bad about it. So I mean, that's part of the game, unfortunately. Like occasionally you will get these kind of accidents, these kind of injuries, but hopefully they just kind of bounce back eventually. And I don't know if it's a thing, but I've seen sometimes some of the like the worser injuries, the players come back a little more intact, if that makes sense. Like some of the
Hmm.
more lingering injuries that are kind of like minor, those are kind of ones that kind of stick with players for a while and couldn't really be resolved. Can't really think of any off the top of my head, but like there's some injuries I've
Yeah,
seen
like
that are pretty
hamstring
traumatic.
players like that have hamstring issues that always consistently hurt their hamstrings or pull their hamstrings every 4 or
Yeah,
5 weeks.
they come back,
That,
but like I've seen like David Villa literally break both of his legs
gee,
in
yeah.
half, and then he came back and still played. Event not during the same season, obviously, but during
Hmm.
the next season, like he did come back eventually. But
Yeah.
hopefully Harvey Elliott, it'll be a miracle story. But that will be, oof,
Yeah.
man, we're looking out for you.
But
Hopefully you
well,
come
I
back.
guess yeah, hoping that he makes that comeback, praying for his recovery. But I guess the bigger question now is that he was only 18 years old, but Klopp trusted him to come into the lineup. But now who comes in his place? Like who steps into that place?
I think it would be Jordan Henderson, just because when Harvey Elliott was taken off the field, the player that did come in was Jordan Henderson. So I
Hmm.
believe, the captain makes his return, but ultimately we do also have other players on the bench like Curtis Jones who can come in, Naby Keita as well.
Has
So
he been injured, Curtis Jones, or has he just not been playing?
I'm not sure actually. I was kind of curious myself. I have seen him in training, so that's kind of like the weird thing because like sometimes coaches just decide it's like maybe he's not 100%, and then they just decide it's like, all right, we're not going to start him. But
Hmm.
Harvey Elliott, I feel like he earned that position. He earned it over Henderson, if anything,
Yeah.
as well. So I feel like the next person that would come in probably would be Henderson, just because he is literally the captain. But
Yeah.
Klopp knows best, and he knows what would be the best tactic for like the next game, which will be against Crystal Palace. Should be a walk in the park. But as Istanbul and all those other events have happened in the past, I'm still always kind of weary about it. So we'll have to see how they recover from here. And also, they do face AC Milan midweek. We're
Yeah.
recording this on Monday, like a couple days
Yeah.
before Champions League. So we haven't seen that game yet. But man, in terms of like just the progression and development of Harvey Elliott as well, like this is like a big reason why Liverpool didn't buy any players in the transfer window, because like they wanted to give him minutes, they wanted to give him the time and the opportunities. So it's kind of rough to see
Yeah.
this.
It's a big blow.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
Yeah. I remember like when that happened for Manchester United with Luke Shaw, because at that point Luke Shaw looked really really good because he because that season before he dealt with a lot of lingering injuries, but that season, Louis Van Gaal's second season, he came into the team and was looking really strong, like a really solid left back. But then that accident came and it was just but hopefully with like we mentioned with Elliot, that hopefully he can just make a quick comeback and bounce back to the form he once had. But another, I guess, storyline that kind of came out of this game was Sadio Mane. He did score a goal, but he actually took, I think there was a Sky Sports put out a stat that in the Premier League this season, he took the most shots in one single Premier League game to not score. So he took 10 shots in total and finally scored on his 10th and final shot. But he up until that point, he had taken 9 shots in that game and failed to score. And some of them, I will have to say, some of them were straight up sitters or almost like, hey, how do you not score there? There was just, what was he thinking? Like he just misconnected with the ball. There was just a lot of instances where like, how did he not score that? And to me, this is a little interesting because last season, Mane did struggle to score some goals. He did not look like the same Mane, and we thought, okay, is this just you know off season for Liverpool, or is this kind of going to be a reoccurring pattern? And unfortunately, I know he did score a goal, but yeah, something just looks a little bit off on him, and it was a little bit weird because for the past, I guess, since the 2016-17 season, I've always been a fan of Mane. I always thought he was one of Liverpool's catalyst players where he kind of do something out of the ordinary to get Liverpool going, or his out of unorthodox style of playing, whether it's be his shooting style or his dribbling. He just kind of catches people off guard, and then that basically his ability to catch people off guard allows him to score some fantastic goals. But yeah, he just has not looked the same the past 2 seasons that he once did when he was pretty much at the peak of his form. But Tyler, I don't know. You watch a lot Liverpool, obviously a lot more than I do. So is this worrying signs for Sadio Mane that he is declining?
I feel like it's a slight consequence of his kind of unorthodox techniques that he has for like shooting, dribbling, and skills, things like that. Because when you watch a player shoot, like maybe a free kick or just a shot on the run, or like a stop and turn, I feel like a player, if you look at like, I mean, if you look at like Erling Haaland, I mean that's kind of weird. But like, let's say you look at John McGinn for Aston Villa, and like say another player in the Premier League, such as like, or I guess formerly in the Premier League, like Troy Deeney, something like that. When you watch them kick or you watch them like take a shot, the technique that they use, like kind of like the kicking motion and like the way they run, it's relatively similar. Like maybe like you can kind of, if you put them in like silhouettes, you'd be like, all right, that's the kind of stance you always see for like someone taking a shot. That's this kind of stance you see for someone passing the ball, kind of running past someone, things like that. But for Sadio Mane, he kind of contorts his body in kind of weird ways to kind of get shots off. And it kind of looks almost like he's straining different tendons and muscles. And I'm like, how is he getting away with this? How is he still like fully fit? I would definitely feel like he would pull something at some of these shots, but he's always gotten away with kind of getting these weird angles and like weird kind of techniques off. And even the goal he scored this past weekend, it was kind of like a weird turn as well. I was just like, okay, well, I mean, at least he got it in. And that's just kind of how he always been. And historically, it's always worked out for him. Like he's always gotten like the shot off kind of a little quicker than a normal person would, or like a normal professional player would, or he would get a shot off that it'd be from like a weird angle, but because of like the way he kicked it or like the way he set up his shot, like that's the only like window he had to shoot, and then he got it off, even though he got it off in like a weird way. It's kind of weird to explain just by audio cues
Yeah,
about
if you've watched
visuals.
Mane, you could like, yeah, you could tell that he just does things a little differently.
hmm And I feel like that lack of like consistency in terms of like technique and everything like that, and having his own way of doing it might be affecting him now because as you get older, you're not really as flexible.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
true.
think now, kind of nearing his late 20s, maybe his body is not being able to like contort and stretch and form in the way that he's used to shooting and passing and running. And it's starting to affect him now. But I mean, ultimately, he did score in this game. So I think also it's partially like a mental thing because he's still scoring goals. And for Senegal, he did score during the international break as well. So it's like, all right, there's something clearly going on where he's like, he can still score, but it's just like, it's just not as many.
Hmm.
And maybe that's just like a slight decline in his career, because everyone peaks and hits their prime at different ages,
Yeah.
and at different parts of their career. It's not always 27 to 29 as like you would see in FIFA. Because
Yeah.
like players like Cam Newton, like he basically peaked very early in his career in football, and then like ever since then, it's just been in
Yeah.
decline. Whereas for Sadio Mane, I feel like his peak was like 3 seasons ago. But it could
Yeah.
be a roller coaster. It can come back.
Hmm.
But it is slightly concerning, and it's you can see it in the relief in his celebration when he finally
Yeah.
did score last weekend, where he's just like he did the
Yeah.
Firmino, kind of like part to the side, just like had
Yeah.
waved his arms to the side. But everyone came to celebrate. Oxlade-Chamberlain, I did notice, didn't celebrate with him. He was kind of more annoyed because I think he didn't get the pass to shoot because Ox was just wide open, and Sadio Mane decided to take the 10th shot of his of his locker for that game. So I mean, it's clearly frustrating for him, and he's trying to get over it. but and usually he would be one of the more unselfish players as well. I feel like
Hmm.
the most selfish player in a good way is Salah because he's, you know, as you mentioned, not just a one season wonder. He's pretty consistent season to season. So it's like, all right, of course you give him the ball. It's kind of like
They
Ronaldo.
joke
It's
he's like
just
the
give him the
sixth
ball.
season wonder.
Yeah, the sixth season wonder at this point. But for Mane, he's always been pretty unselfish, and if he does have the open shot, he will take it. But the past two seasons, including this one, those chances he usually would put away. It might be hitting the defender, it might be shooting right at the keeper, it might hit wide a little bit, but and it might not be scoring as clinically as he used to. But I mean, maybe that might be a consequence of just like declining, just age in
Hmm.
his prime and his ability. So I think that might be just a consequence of that. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
It's
not
like
sure if
it's
he's
kind
gonna
of
get it back. That's the thing. I
yeah.
honestly
It
don't
is
know.
kind of crazy. It is kind of crazy when you think about it because it wasn't too long ago. I would say 3 or 4 seasons ago when him, Salah, Firmino were literally they combined for a crazy amount of goals. Like they were
Mhm,
literally the front three that like the front three everyone wanted. Um, But it just I feel like that's with any sport though. When you see like Golden State when they had that incredible run with their three superstars and when they added Durant, talking NBA here, but I feel like with any sport when you have a trio or a core of just stars, it's very hard to maintain that consistency for a very long amount of time. I think it's pretty much unrealistic. It's just too much too many variables like age, whether the hunger is still there, all of that you have to take into account. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see the Mane coming back because Mane definitely, even though he joined Liverpool, he's still one of my. I enjoy watching him because he's so unorthodox that he can kind of pull off the spectacular whenever he wants to. So hopefully we'll see Mane kind of coming back to um, some of that prime goal scoring form that he once had a couple seasons ago. So we'll
mhm.
see what happens there. But
I would
um,
say like an analogy I kind of just thought of is like
mhm,
when you watch certain shooters in the NBA, like Steph Curry, like Klay Thompson, they have like specific releases for when they shoot the ball. Like you
yeah,
can even put it to a T where it's like because they practice a certain shot a certain way in like the gym like 10,000 times, they always do it the
yeah,
same way in game. And
yeah,
there's certain players that do it correctly, and certain players like Lonzo Ball, when he came out
yeah,
from UCLA, he had like a very peculiar release where it's like
yeah. Just
it
doing his
wasn't
own
like
thing.
straight on, like he kind of did it like side, like he flicked his arm out like sideways.
Yeah.
Sadio Mane is like the equivalent of Lonzo Ball,
Alonzo
except
Ball.
if Lonzo Ball came straight out of UCLA like balling. I mean, granted, Mane did not come out just straight balling like from Southampton or Red Bull. Like he literally just came from into Liverpool, and then some of his unorthodox and his athletic ability kind of paid off and kind of covered that. But I think now it's kind of showing now that
Mhm.
some of those unorthodox things can't really work as well if you don't still have that athletic ability. But
Yeah.
then again, I could be slightly wrong about that because whenever I see like those documentaries and background training videos on YouTube of the Liverpool facility, everyone's always like, it's always Mo Salah and Sadio Mane like last in the gym. They're always just living there. So that's yeah. So that's something we're gonna have
Yeah.
to just kind of keep
Hopefully
digging.
hopefully that some of Salah's, like, goal scoring form could just rub off on Mane,
Just
if
rub
they're in the
off.
gym together, yeah, so we'll see, but, yeah, Liverpool, top of the Premier League table along with Manchester United, Chelsea, and now Everton, actually, and they did beat Burnley today, which is, Everton being on top of the table with them. It's pretty funny, but,
Ooh.
you know, they're not staying there for too long.
Mhm.
But we wanted to mention Watford Wolves, and one specific thing we wanted to mention in this game was Hwang Hee-Chan, the man we mentioned from last week's episode. He got his debut goal. I think was it a tap in essentially,
Yeah, it was a
right?
tap in,
Yeah.
like from the
But
1 yard line.
that's cool because I think I saw a video of like the Korean commentators for that game. They went absolutely berserk when Hwang Yi-chan scored his goal. So it's great to see that.
I loved it. I was like, all right, he finally scores a league goal the first time in like 2 seasons. So he couldn't score in the Bundesliga at all, but first match subbed in the Premier League,
He did it.
he did it. So I mean, Wolves put the pressure on, and then Huang was right place, right time. So hopefully
Yeah.
this is the start of something. Because if
Yeah.
anything, Wolves all they're missing is a goal scorer. Like if you watch them play so far in the season, they've gotten so many chances. They have
They
like
just need someone to put
Trincao.
them away.
Yeah, they like it would be Jimenez, but he's still kind of recovering a little bit from like the rust. But maybe Hwang can help him out. But
Yes, sir.
that was just so hyped to see.
Yeah, it's great to see that. It's great to see that. And honestly, oddly enough, in this next game, Arsenal Norwich, where Arsenal did beat Norwich 1-0, another Asian international performed. Japanese international Takahiro Tomiyasu actually did pretty well at right back, and
Mhm.
actually, I think there was from what I've been seeing from Arsenal fans, they actually embraced him a lot from his performance. They kind of liked the way he performed, the mentality he had, the toughness he had, just the traits he was displaying on the field for Arsenal. So it's great to see that the Arsenal fans are kind of embracing this deadline day transfer and kind of embracing him with open arms, because the fact that he slotted in at right back and could basically solidify himself as the right back for Arsenal alongside Kieran Tierney on the other side. That's not that's not too bad. From everyone I have heard, even from outside of Arsenal, they were pretty impressed with Tomiyasu's performance against Norwich. Granted, it was against Norwich, but hey, Arsenal were bottom of the Premier League table going into this match, so they needed this dub.
It was a relegation battle, and honestly, it made it a really interesting game because of that. Because it was two teams that are kind of in the oh crap kind of situation. It's like, all right, we got to get something. Like people are gonna get upset, and Arsenal made some bold changes too. Not only did they take out, Cedric Suarez and Callum Chambers from like that right side, but they also took out Leno. Bernd Leno was taking out a goal, which is kind of surprising because Ramsdale, he hasn't really been at the club that long either. Like
Yeah,
Tomiyasu literally came in on transfer deadline day and they
it's
slotted
playing.
him in like a week later, which is kind of insane to hear. And then Maitland Niles, the man who made the Instagram post saying, "Why won't you let me leave?" Basically, not that direct, but he got the starting 11 gig in the center defensive mid position, like where's Xhaka would have played. So these are kind of big, bold moves against as we mentioned, a Norwich side that is struggling, probably will struggle the whole season. But this was a big move for them to play, for Arteta to play, and it kind of worked out. They ultimately got the 1-0. The goal was a little scrappy, I'm not gonna lie. Aubameyang was also, it was a tap in from a few ricochets here and there, but they got the job done. They got the clean sheet, they got the one goal, they got the 3 points, and now they're only in 17th place. So they're
Hey, out of
not,
relegation
yeah,
zone.
they're out of relegation, but it's gonna be a slow climb out of there.
But
But
I mean,
I'm
that is
excited.
interesting. It is interesting though, because Burnt Leno being benched, it kind of just shows that Arteta's just like, all right, now that we've got Ramsdale, get Burnt Leno out of here. Just get him out of here. And I thought it was very interesting that I remember when Emi Martinez kind of came in during when Burnt Leno actually got injured during the start of the Project Restart, and Emi Martinez came. I know a lot of Arsenal fans were like, why don't we just keep Martinez and then sell Burnt Leno? But they actually did the opposite, where they kept Leno and then sold Martinez. And just talking to some Arsenal fans, they've honestly have never really been completely sold on Bert Leno. Yeah, they said that in that first season he did make he made some big saves and we're kind of keeping Arsenal in the game. But I guess the way they said that, the way Arteta wants to play, Leno is not very good playing the ball out of his feet. He's not a very comfortable passer, and he's also prone to making an error or two every so often. So maybe this is kind of changing the guard, where they're just like, maybe we just rush Ramsdale in now and just go from there and just kind of see if we can sell Burton Leno in January transfer window or something like that. But I think they are making the right move, because why not just go for the future now instead of someone that is a little meh and iffy in terms of performances for Arsenal.
It is pretty exciting. This is very FIFA career mode kind of move where it's just like, this player has a 90, he's a high prospect player, this is a player that's projected to be a 90 rated player. He's like
Yeah,
79 rated right now, but whatever,
let's
we'll
just
we'll
train
play him
him.
now. Let's just train him up and just put him in. So that's kind of crazy to see. They're just kind of like YOLO mentality because ultimately, as we mentioned in the previous episode, Adu and Arteta are both like on the hot seat. So it's like they kind of want to see their players get at least some minutes before they get sacked. So it's like,
Yeah.
what, let's just put him in now. Otherwise, before we won't even get the chance to see him.
Hmm.
So, and Thomas Partey also made it onto the bench as well. So he's back from injury. So It might be. I'm always very hopeful for Arsenal for some reason, some way.
Maybe this is the run. They get them
Maybe
in the Champions
maybe
League,
this is their
their
run.
title run.
This is it.
They just go on like a 30-game unbeaten streak.
You never know. All the Gunners fans are like, "All right, don't give me hope. Don't do this to me."
Oh
But I mean,
man.
you got one good thing going for you. So there you go.
Yeah. So it is like we mentioned last week. I thought this next string of games is make it or break it for Arteta. So, one for one. I guess one of three right now. So let's see if he can pick up another two victories for Arsenal. But now moving on to sort of a different section for us. As we mentioned today, the day we're recording this, September 13th, this was the day that FIFA actually released their top 22 players for FIFA 22, their top rated players in that game. A couple interesting things that we wanted to note, because both, as we've probably talked about, or if you've heard from our references throughout the entire time we've recorded the Premiere Pod, Tyler and I do play FIFA. And we have played FIFAs in the past, whether that be career mode, ultimate team. So we kind of know a little bit our ins and outs of the FIFA ratings and past historical data in terms of like who's been rated what, just from past FIFAs. So the FIFA 22 ratings have caused a bit of controversy for a lot of people, have caused a lot of conversation because there have been some interesting choices I feel like EA have made in this FIFA. So I guess to start it off with, I guess quote unquote top 10. What's interesting here is, Messi, 93 being number one. Yeah, Messi deserves it. Number two is not Cristiano Ronaldo. Number two is actually Robert Lewandowski at 92 rated. And then third highest rated player is actually Cristiano Ronaldo, 91 rated. That is the first time since, gosh, I think maybe FIFA 11 or FIFA 10 where it hasn't been Messi and Ronaldo, the top two highest rated players on the game. So it's a big move by EA to do that. And not saying this just because I'm a Manchester United fan. I do feel like that one downgrade for Ronaldo is a little bit harsh because he was the leading goal scorer in Serie A last season. And yeah, he didn't get Juve to a Champions League, but I feel like if anything, Ronaldo deserved to stay on level with 92, and then you could throw Lewandowski in that 92 pool as well. I do think Lewandowski did deserve that upgrade because he's been a very, very, very good player for Bayern Munich and probably honestly top five for the past couple seasons. And this past two seasons, he's definitely shown his quality. But I think the Ronaldo downgrade is a little bit harsh for sure.
It's kind of weird to see even Ronaldo at a 91 because I
Yeah,
don't even remember him being at around that level besides like FIFA 12, 11. Like it's literally
yeah,
been almost like a decade since we've seen Messi or Ronaldo like basically n- under 90 almost. So
yeah.
Ronaldo's kind of getting there. He's 36 given that, but you have to give it to Lewandowski. He basically should have won the Ballon d'Or.
Yeah, if it wasn't for COVID, he definitely would have won the Ballon d'Or. He had a ridiculous season that year.
hmm And Ronaldo is kind of getting up there in terms of age, and FIFA historically hates old people. And when I say old people, I just mean in their terms of old people, it's just 30 years old or above. So usually there's a pretty big downgrade in terms of pace and overall rating as you get older. But for Messi and Ronaldo, they've been pretty lenient about it because given they are literally some of the two best players of all time, and Messi's still the same rating. But I mean, for Ronaldo, he's still technically now the highest rated player in the Premier League, which
Yeah, that
is
is
pretty
true.
interesting to see. It's like, oh wow,
Yeah,
literally someone from the transfer window now is the highest rated player in the Premier League, and it's Ronaldo. And I mean, the next best player in terms of rating would in the Premier League at least is Kevin De Bruyne,
yeah. Then
which
Kane, then Conte.
then
um,
yeah, we'll
yes,
mention the others in a sec, but it's kind of surprising to see like, Ronaldo, he had such a good season last season with Juventus. Granted, they
yeah,
didn't really do what Juventus typically does, just like win everything. But I mean, individually, Ronaldo still did pretty well, as opposed to the next player that we're going to mention, Kevin De Bruyne.
yeah,
He was kind of slightly hindered by injury at times, but he kind of had a lackluster season to his standards, but he
yeah,
kept the same rating. Like
yeah.
his
Same stats too. Same stats from FIFA 20 or FIFA 21. Literally the same exact card. They were
So I don't
just like,
understand EA. I'm like, shouldn't De Bruyne be downgraded then with that
Yeah,
kind of logic? But maybe De Bruyne's not old enough to get the downgrade yet, so they're like, you know what, we're just gonna keep him as is.
it's very interesting because I feel like some of their that rating also is kind of one of those where he did have an okay season, but it's not up to De Bruyne standard esque seasons where he's winning Players Player of the Year awards. Um, One that I thought was interesting was Kane finally breaking into the 90 club. I believe this is his first FIFA where he has had a 90 rated card. Because historically he's always been at 89, 88, 87, like top tier, but not ultimate top tier. Um, so him breaking the 90 card, I think that is pretty well deserved because he had such a good season last year. But Conte getting a 90 rated card is pretty big because that's his first season as well for Conte.
Hmm.
I think it's pretty well deserved because he's been one of the best players these past couple of years, but now finally probably getting some love from EA, deservedly so.
And I would say Conte is one of the hardest players to determine rating for, just because it's kind of like determining a
You
rating
can't look at
for.
his stats.
Yes, for stats, it's like, all right, how many tackles did he get? How many interceptions? Like maybe it could be that. It's like how many times did a player get pressured to doing a pass too early or just disrupting the other team's tactics just because Conte's just there's like seven of them on the pitch whenever he plays because he's just
Yeah.
always everywhere. So it's always hard to kind of figure out Conte, but kind of the four players we just mentioned from the Premier League, Ronaldo, De Bruyne, Harry Kane, and Conte, those are the four players that are in the 90 club, 90 rated or above in the Premier League. And the
Yeah.
rest have been lowered or just under 90. So players like Mo Salah, Van Dijk, Mane, Alisson, the four Liverpool players,
They
some
were in
were
the
in the
90 club
90s.
last year.
They're in the 90
Or in
club last
FIFA
season.
20. Or FIFA, was it FIFA 21 or 20? I think
I
it was
believe it was
21.
last
They were,
season.
yeah.
Yeah. But they all got at some point put now into the 89 rating, which is still not too bad given last year Liverpool as a whole. If you were to take everything into account, they snuck into third place last minute,
Yeah.
and like they didn't have like the best season. Like individually, we just kind of mentioned Mane didn't really have the best season. Salah actually scored more goals last season than he did in the previous season when he was a 90 rated, but he got
Yeah.
demoted for some reason. So
Yeah.
the
The
logic's kind of
solid.
wonky.
The Salah one definitely, even as a United fan, I felt that was pretty harsh. Like I felt like if anything, Salah was kind of the glue that was keeping Liverpool ticking during this entire of last season when they were struggling so much. I just, if anything, I felt like he deserved a 91 over Kevin De Bruyne. But the fact that he got an 89, I thought that was really, really harsh on EA for Salah at least.
Maybe just don't like him. Maybe the the man or woman who makes the ratings is a City fan. But
and
the
the
last, yeah,
the Van Dyke, I'll say this real Van Dyke. I get to a certain point, yeah, he was injured, but I mean, I feel like that's pretty harsh too. Like he was pretty solid before the injury, but it's just like how can you downgrade someone just because they got a bad injury? You know,
they got
that's
injured
just
for the
my
whole
logic.
season.
Yeah,
Injured for the whole season, -1.
yeah. I
I
was like, come
mean,
on, that's a
I
little
can see the
harsh.
logic a little bit there, where it's like, he's out the whole season. It's like maybe he won't come back 100%. I mean, you gotta look at some other players too. It's just like I'm not gonna mention any ones that are not in the Premier League, but I'm looking at Ter Stegen. I'm like, how is he 90? What's going on?
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's just one of those. I think Ali Sun, yeah, he did have a little bit of some blunders last season, but yeah, Liverpool, I felt like yeah, they had a struggling season. So they, historically FIFA always does this. A team that struggles a lot the previous season, the next FIFA, they get pretty much all their players, from the board, starting 11, get a little bit of a downgrade, whether that be in individual stats or overall rating. Um, so it was tough. That's the one thing I always hate when your team is struggling during this current season. You think about the next FIFA that's coming out, you're just like, man, the team is going to be like garbage this like in the next FIFA compared to this FIFA.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, Liverpool got hit with a little bit of a downgrade. But I know you're probably going to mention it, but Hyunmin Son breaking into the 89 club. I know it's not the 90 club, but 89, that's really high. Because I think what was Son, 88 or 87?
Yeah, he's 87. So
So he jumped over 88 to get into 80. That's crazy. That's a big leap for Hyunmin Son.
and just in general, I feel like this might be one of like the highest, if not the highest rated, like Asian player I've
Yeah.
ever seen in FIFA.
That's true. If
So
you're not
like,
counting, I guess not even a legend like Nakata, he's not even that
yeah,
high.
that's
high.
cheating though.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah. If
legend
you're not counting
cards.
like foot card, but yeah, yeah, for sure. I think he might be the highest rated Asian player.
Just on base card alone, because like even when Park Ji Sung played for Manchester United back in the days, I remember his card was just like 81, and that was
Yeah, he
like
was never
prime
highly
Park.
rated.
So he was very much like Fred level in terms of like his rating. It's just very much 82, 81, 83, things like that, if I remember correctly. But Human's son, I mean, him and Kane, that connection is what got him up there. His goals, his goal
And
tallies, his
assist.
stats don't lie. So that's why he's up there. But I'm like, man, that's
His
huge.
shooting is crazy. If we're looking at the card right now, he has 87 shooting, and Karim Benzema, who is Real Madrid striker, 89 rated, has 86 shooting.
He's better
So
shooting than Benzema.
that's just crazy. Like, how is he have better shooting than Benzema? Like, that's Karim Benzema, man. That's crazy.
we we kind of apologize for those who don't play FIFA, and this section just doesn't make sense. But in terms of just if you were to take a snapshot, or not a snapshot, but like accumulation of how the players did in the previous season, and then you put it into like a baseball card or like a kind of equivalent thing, but for a video game, this is the equivalent. So kind of seeing these stats and seeing these kind of player ratings is how EA is kind of Electronic Arts is kind of determining how these players did in the previous season. So kind of seeing these stats are kind of like a validation. It's like, all right, did Sun actually have a good season? It's like, oh yeah, he did. And it's like, did Mane have a good season? It's like, kind of rough, but he got dropped a little bit. And then the ones that are just confusing us are just like De Bruyne and Salah. And then kind of like the last one I do want to mention, just so that we mention all the Premier League players that made it into the top 22, is Ederson. Ederson also made it as an 89 rated keeper, basically on par with Ali's son. But I mean, you kind of have to give it to him too. He got Golden Glove, and he's still the same rating as Ali's son. So, you know, hmm. But I mean, there's not really that many surprising things besides Ter Stegen in this top 22. But I'm glad to see at least basically half of it is Premier League.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I think it's been majority Premier League because I think the Premier League, we had mentioned it before, but the Premier League is the strongest it's been for such a long time because it was not too long ago in past FIFAs where the list was pretty much dominated by La Liga teams, whether that be Real Madrid and Barcelona. But now the tide is kind of flipped, where as Tyler mentioned, in the top 10 at least, there's Ronaldo, De Bruyne, Kane, Conte. That's four players in the top 10 just in the Premier League alone, and then the other 89, you have Salah, Son, Van Dijk, Mane, Ederson, Ali Son. That's six people. Six players right there. Not to mention, this is just from the top 22. That doesn't mean there's still going to be more 89 players, but that have not been listed in the 22. So you still have players like Bruno Fernandes, Paul Pogba, of like really highly rated players that can still make it into like the top 50 that haven't even been listed out. So Premier League for sure is going to be a fun league to play with in FIFA, just based alone on how good the players are.
It's gonna be expensive.
Yeah, if you're trying to build an ultimate team, like it's Premier League is going to be crazy. Premier League is already a really expensive league to build half the time too, with the
Mhm.
as they like to call like the Premier League or English tax. So Premier League teams are about to be really expensive.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with Turkish league. Just start off with there we go.
Pure Brazilian team.
Or that too. I like to do that. You gotta upgrade Turkish league to full Brazil to Bundesliga potentially, and then you start twiddling with the Premier League. But it's a progression, unless you're rich.
Yeah, you buy your players. But I know this is a Premier League podcast, but I quickly wanted to mention that for PSG, I know the joke has been, or the meme that has been, please don't pick PSG when you have FIFA 22 when you're playing with your buddies. But their squad, just based on the top 22 cards, is ridiculous. They have the highest rated player, Messi. Then they have 91 rated Neymar, 91 rated Mbappe, with 97 pace, which is crazy. And then not to mention they sprinkle in an 89 rated Donnarumma. That is that's scary. So whenever you're playing FIFA with everyone in a FIFA party, just please avoid PSG. Don't be that guy. Don't be
Unless you
that
want to
person.
win, and you
Yeah.
don't know, pick PSG because Mbappe's. I can already say is probably gonna be the best card
Broken.
in this game.
It's broken.
Oh my gosh. And then Gianluigi Donnarumma. We kind of talked about this off camera, but I think just from his Euros, he basically jumped from an 85 to an 89 rated.
That I don't actually I don't remember a player. I don't remember a player having that big of a jump in terms of rating, like that 5-6 overall jump. That's just crazy, or 4 overall in this case. But that's a pretty big
Mm,
leap.
I guess Holland just did it.
Yeah, I guess Holland did it too. But it is a pretty insane leap to go from one level to the next that
It's
high.
true.
But
Yeah, that
it is
quickly too.
deserved. I mean, he was the best goalkeeper in the Euro tournament. Donnarumma was for Italy.
Hmm. So there we
Man,
go. Let's see if he actually gets time over Kaylor Navas.
free Kaylor.
Free Kaylor, dude.
Oh man, but yeah, we wanted to mention that in there because it did cause a lot of controversy and a lot of talk in the FIFA community because ratings always get people going because it's always one club is like, oh, my player should be the highest rated player in the game. Like, what? This is BS. So it's always fun, and just because a card is highly rated doesn't mean they actually perform that well in games. You got to find some of the hidden gems that are a little bit lower rated, but sometimes perform better than the 90 rated cards. That's just how FIFA plays. But you know, the game comes out in what, October 1st or something like that, or
October
the first week of
1st.
October.
And then
Um,
you get to play 4 days early if you get the like most expensive edition. We're
there
not
you go.
sponsored by EA, but
Yeah.
EA,
So
if you want to
yeah,
sponsor us, I don't know.
there we
That's
go.
the opposite EA to give away
Yeah.
money. Also, I don't
So
think it's
yeah,
happening.
FIFA 22, it's coming near, so we're excited, and I think everyone else is with these ratings and such. So it'll be fun times. But moving on to our last section, the preview section, the games this weekend, not really a blockbuster Big Six matchup like we were getting used to last season, but there's still a little bit juicier matchups here. I actually forgot there was Tottenham Chelsea, but in terms of like the top four big heavyweights going at it, there's not one this weekend. But starting it off, we have West Ham versus Manchester United. This game will be pretty interesting because, as Tyler mentioned, this is kind of a big-ish test for Manchester United because they've played Leeds, they played Southampton, they've played Wolves, and they played Newcastle. But now West Ham, a little bit of a different tier compared to those teams, just based on their performances last season, how they started off this season. So kind of a big test playing at West Ham at the London Stadium. So it's going to be a ruckus crowd. It's going to be pretty crazy. The West Ham supporters always bring a very good atmosphere to the match. So this will be a fun one. I think Mikel Antonio was actually suspended for this one because he got a red card in the previous game. So that's a big boost for Manchester United. But I mean, come on. With the United team, like they have to win this game. I know West Ham is going to be tough, but I feel like Manchester United can walk out with a 3-1 victory. I think West Ham can get a goal, but I think West Ham will try to push to get another goal. But I think United could hit them with a counterattack. So I'm going to go with the 3-1 Manchester United victory. And as we see, Tyler's dog make an appearance at the podcast, barking on this one.
So basically, 3-1 was what I was also gonna say.
Hmm.
It's kind of like a theme of last week too. It's like you're taking all the scores. I was gonna say, but for this one, I think West Ham also is going to be a very interesting week for them because it'll be their first week in European competition. They're going to be in the Europa League, and they're going to have to decide. All right, do we put our best starting 11 against Man U, and then put kind of similar kind of starting 11 for whoever they're facing in the Europa League, or do they kind of do a half and half kind of situation?
Hmm.
I think they'll probably. I don't know if they're going to prioritize one or the other, but I think they'll probably put some of their strongest against Man U, and then probably the opposition they play in the Europa League probably won't be as strong as Man U. That's my best guess. So they're probably going to do a little bit of a hybrid there. But I think it's going to be a little rough for them to kind of balance that and then also balance the game that comes after that Thursday match in the Europa League. So kind of basing it all on just West Ham and not really Man U, because I know Man U have enough depth to really kind of handle this kind of situation. And they have Ronaldo, so it's gonna be just 3-1. 3-1 to Man U.
Yeah, so we're both thinking the same there, but then we have Burnley versus Arsenal. This, as we said, is game 2 of 3 of kind of saving Arteta's, I guess, managerial career at Arsenal. I feel like maybe that's not the talk going on the board, but for me, I feel like it is. This will be a tough game. Burnley haven't started the Premier League season too well. They did get blasted by Everton just today, actually, in the Premier League, but this is always a really tough test playing Burnley at Turf Moor. The way Burnley play, they're very physical. Arsenal, a team that doesn't like playing very physical, that gets kind of bossed around a lot very easily. Arsenal, a team that's historically not been very good with aerial threats. Burnley are filled with aerial threats. So this is going to be a test to see what the mentality is like at Arsenal, whether these new defenders and new players coming in, Aaron Ramsdale being in as a goalie, Tomiyasu, what can they do to kind of galvanize and kind of push this Arsenal defense and push this team to victory? It's going to be tough, but I can't see Arsenal walking out of Turf Moor with a victory. I think it will actually end a 1-1. This game will end in a 1-1 draw.
I was getting pretty close to kind of flipping between a draw and a win, but because like Ben White, I feel like Ben White is gonna be a big deciding factor in this game because Ben White, his biggest weakness is aerial threats,
Yeah.
and basically Burnley is just aerial bombardment, and you got Chris Wood up there, so Arsenal, I feel like they have a little bit of hope, and that hope usually is what kills them. But also at the same time, Burnley are kind of in the same situation, low key, because they're kind of going under the radar because Sean Dyche has been such a good manager throughout the past few seasons. Like even when Burnley got relegated, they came straight back up. And usually you can have a lot of faith in this team to kind of just get the job done. But I mean, this season, I wouldn't be surprised for them to be kind of more in that relegation battle than we mentioned in the previews. And I feel like one of these games is kind of an indicator. It's like, all right, this could be kind of a struggle the whole season. And I feel like
hmm
Arsenal, they actually might sneak it. I think they might get the 1
Oh
0.
wow.
So I'm going to say 1-0 to
Dang.
Arsenal. See, the
At
hope always
Burnley.
comes through. I'm like,
At Burnley. That's crazy. All
yeah,
right. All right. Maybe we'll see a new Arsenal. Arsenal that could defend aerial threats. That'll be a new one, but dang. All
maybe they
right,
just won't
okay.
chuck any aerial balls. I'm just,
They try to play like prime Barcelona.
mhm.
Just all on the ground. But yeah, we'll see. That's a big claim. But hey, I could see a win, but I just feel like a draw is more likely in this game. But we'll see what happens. And then finally we have Tottenham versus Chelsea. Two London clubs going at it, two London rivals. Tottenham got blasted by Crystal Palace. They lost 3-0 at Selhurst Park. It was a pretty bad display because Tanganga got sent off with a red card. And basically Tottenham just collapsed after that. They just couldn't handle the Palace defense or the Palace pressure. Excuse me. This game, I don't know, Tottenham fans. This is going to be a hard game to win, especially the way Nuno likes to set up with playing very defensive, playing behind the ball, hitting Chelsea on the counterattack. Chelsea are like on another level. I feel like when it comes to just the way they've been performing this season, they have Conte, they have Jorginho, they have Lukaku, they have they have Mount, they have Kai Havertz. They just have so many players they can throw at Tottenham that I think eventually Tottenham will crack. And I'm gonna go with a Chelsea 2-1 victory um, at Tottenham. So I'm going Chelsea 2-1.
Tottenham also are kind of in a semi injury crisis because if you notice in the last game too, although we didn't really mention the 3-0 loss Tottenham had to Crystal Palace last weekend, a lot of it was also just because Tanganga got the red card. And after the red card, the wheels fell off the wagon.
Yeah,
But
but
on top of
Dyer
that,
got
yeah,
injured. I
Eric
think
Dyer
Son is
injured.
injured too.
Son is injured with an undisclosed timeline. Bergwijn's also injured. Romero, basically the Atalanta center back that they got, is also injured for undisclosed time. Davinson Sanchez is out for personal reasons. So looking at the squad depth,
It's just Kane.
it's
And
just I guess Kane. He's played in goal before, so maybe he can play in center back now. But they're kind of in a bit of a crap show right now. They're not really coming off some great form at home. I'm not really sure that's going to help. Granted, this will be one of the first times in the Tottenham Stadium where they actually will have hopefully a full crowd. But I guess a Chelsea side that has been so good under Tuchel for also just not conceding goals and just playing so stoutly in terms of their defensive abilities and also just bringing up the right and left wing backs to kind of bring in like a front five almost. I
Hmm.
feel like it's gonna be too overwhelming for Tottenham to the point where I don't even think they'll have much service to Kane. I think it's gonna
Yeah.
be I don't know what to say.
Lucas Moura.
Threes.
It's just gonna be literally
Lucas
Lucas
Moura.
Moura just running.
Dude, Conte's just gonna shut him down. He's gonna be like Roquan Smith out there. But I think I kind of want to say 3-0 for
Wow.
Chelsea. I think it's gonna be
No
bad.
hope for Tottenham to get a
There's
goal.
no for Tottenham. Like there was hope at the beginning of the season, but then on top of these injuries and just that poor game last weekend, I think it's gonna be kind of rough. But granted, maybe Chelsea might hold back a little bit if they go 2-0 up. Maybe Tuchel will kind of play more conservative just to make sure his players are healthy and energized for the midweek game in the Champions League. But I don't see Tottenham scoring. I think it's gonna be at least 2 or 3-0. I'm gonna say
Dang.
just 3-0.
Okay, 3-0. I'm going 2-1 Chelsea. Tyler's going 3-0 Chelsea. So both two Chelsea victories there. But yeah, that pretty exciting weekend coming up. But we obviously the what we mentioned before, we are recording this on Monday, so we're not taking into account the Champions League fixtures, Europa League, and Europa Conference League fixtures that will be coming in um, during this week. But yeah, that kind of wraps up episode 124 for us. As we always say, you can follow us on social media on Instagram and Twitter at the Premier Pod. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube at the Premier Pod to catch the video versions of the podcast. You can reach out to us with any questions you have or anything topics you would like for us to discuss on our social media channels. We are always happy to discuss anything you guys want to talk about and answer any questions you guys have. And if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, if you'd like to leave us a rating and review, that's more than appreciated. It definitely helps us out in terms of getting us seen and heard across to more people on the Apple Podcast platforms. But if you don't listen on Apple Podcasts, or if you just want to listen to the show, that's more than welcome. We love the fact that you're just listening to the podcast. But if you want to share the podcast with someone that is interested in soccer or the Premier League, will greatly be we'll greatly appreciate it. It helps us out a lot as well. So as we always say, thank you again for the support and the listens and the shares and always interacting with us and stopping by each week to listen to us each week. So we do appreciate it, and thank you guys so much. And that wraps up episode 124 for us. Thank you guys. Peace.
Peace.